So it says live, and then there'll be like a number counter at the top. I think.
We're
Hopefully,
good.
we'll see.
We're good. We're 12 seconds in now.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so hey everybody, good to see you all. It's been a while since I've actually got to do one of these interviews, so I'm excited to have Jesse here with me today. I'll let Jesse kind of speak to more about what he's up to in life. But Jesse went through the Authentic Being coaching experience last year from January to June, and we've actually been looking to do this interview, I think, since June, when we've both had to reschedule things. But yeah, I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited just to have conversation with you about like what your experience was, and just your experience and how things have been since. It's actually really cool because a lot of the times I'll do these interviews sort of right after the program's been completed, and so I'm really curious to see like, hey, like how have things been, and like how are some of the concepts that we covered, are they still being like utilized, that type of thing. So anyways, enough of me speaking to it. Jesse, feel free to share whatever you want to share about yourself and what you're up to right now.
Okay, so I'm a firefighter full time in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I live in Gearing, Nebraska, and I on my days off, I'm a carpenter. And when I got with Andrew, I just really stressed out by just like trying to please everybody, every customer there was, and that's one of the things we work on, among other things. But so I stay pretty busy with my. Then I have two children, two boys, and they play sports. We go fishing. I'm just a busy person anymore, but I'm learning to enjoy my life a lot more after learning more about myself, really.
So. Yeah. And, something, I'll call it unique, but it's unique in a good way. So you're from Alaska originally, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah. I spent 24 years in Alaska before I left.
Yeah. I always found that like, it's so, you may not think this, but I think it's such a cool, like, I imagine there's so much more to like just the story of you in terms of like growing up and the experiences that you got to have and stuff like that being up there.
No, I think growing up in Alaska is really, really awesome. Actually, it's, I mean, much different than anywhere else I've lived, but it's just, there's a lot of adventure. It's just a different place. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So we connected, I think, back in summer of 2021, just through the No More Mr. Nice Guy community there.
Yeah, and right around July 4th, actually.
Nice.
Well, I can remember I kind of broke down with my wife and told her, kind of stuff she didn't know about me, stuff I was hiding, and so that's about the time I joined the group.
Yeah, well, whatever you want to share, like what was sort of your journey, even coming into that community? Like, I imagine that you must have come across Robert Glover's book, and like what led you to finding the community?
So initially, I was looking up fathering books, how to be a better father, and I just never felt like I was adequate enough as a father, and somehow, in this list of books, among others, I saw No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it caught my eye. And so I started listening to it, and almost 90% of that, the people he describes as me. And it's really like, it was amazing how close he was on everything. And it just made me kind of feel guilty about how I was hiding things from my wife, like the stuff that, it's stupid. I'd be doing things behind her back, like watching porn or, drinking, stuff like that. And it's just, why hide that stuff? And I finally got enough guts to bring it up, and it was actually the 4th of July.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's one of the biggest dilemmas for men in general these days, is that there's a lot of shame and just guilt over the things that are, I would say, very common things around masculinity these days.
I agree.
And like, what do you notice just about not having to hide those things anymore, hide how you're showing up in life?
I'm much more comfortable in my own skin. Like, it's, not having to do things behind my wife's back and hide from her. It's it's just a relief in that. I can act
Hmm.
myself in front of my friends. You know, they still like me. You know, I'm still the same person. They just know a little more about me now.
Yeah.
I've never, like, before this, I never really got to know anybody. I just kind of was there, and now I'm starting to actually
Mm.
get to know people. So
That's such a great, just a great distinction there, right? Like,
yeah,
so, so what do you notice about that? Like from you, like being more authentic and just you, like, what is that creating in terms of relationship?
it's just uh, it's easier to make conversation with people, that even people I don't know. Um, just honestly, being yourself it's the easiest thing you can do. It really is. I don't know. It's just it's makes life a lot less stressful when you're not trying to
Hmm.
hide yourself and be, what everybody else wants you to be, or you think they want you to be.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I mean, I can speak from my own experience that, for many, many years, I kind of felt like I had to like play the role, right? Play
Yeah.
the correctional officer or, the good person, the nice guy, that type of thing. And I don't think I was sort of conscious enough of like the impact of it. But what I have noticed is that in the years of doing this work, like, man, it's much more freeing. Like
Yeah,
life just feels
it
light when
really
you don't
is.
when you can just be you, and like that can be okay. The
Yeah.
world will respond accordingly. So
Well,
it's so cool to hear.
I remember when I started your program, I was, I wouldn't tell anybody about it. And it was just kind of like, it was a shameful thing also. And then you had me call people and ask those questions about how I show up, and what do I bring into a room when I walk in. And I called people that I thought would just tear me apart for doing this thing. And they're also supportive of it. It's crazy. Like, this the stuff that we worry about and we think that people are going to make fun of us for, it's, they accept you for who you are, and they're there to support you. It was pretty cool. I mean, there were probably, I think I held 7 people, and 3 of them were the guys I work with. And that was where I was really nervous about calling, and not a word from any of them, never left, never got outside of that conversation. Actually, they never even brought it up. So,
Yeah, and what you're talking to is the essence conversation there.
right. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's interesting what kind of comes from me, and having gone through that experience with multiple people is like we like because what I remember from your experience, from at least like from my side of it was like that was pretty straightforward. Like it was like, hey Jesse, go do this thing. You're like, okay. I came back the next
No,
week and
but I think I waited till like the last couple of days to call. I think I called like around
mm,
about like 3 people, and the other 4 were 3 of people I worked with. I held off on because I just
yeah,
didn't want to, but yeah, I did it, and it wasn't any big deal. They just, yeah.
totally.
So was that your first time doing that as well when you called?
When I called you,
Yeah.
that no, that would have probably been
Okay.
my third time at this point. So,
So the awkwardness is kind of gone with that then, I suppose.
but it's so interesting
I
because
hope that's okay. I brought that up.
no, that's totally cool.
Okay.
Here's what is interesting about it is that each time is different. Each time there's a different resistance
Okay.
because when I went through the essence conversation, this recently, these last couple months, like I chose a different group of people, and it's almost like, so the first resistance was like, why am I doing this? I already have done this twice, right? And then it's like, yeah, but the challenge is like, okay, now I'm going to go to a totally different group of people and see what
Gotcha.
comes up. So, and the thing that I'll come back to is like, so it's great to hear like, oh, there was like a bit of a struggle in it for you,
Yeah.
when you showed up to our call, like you were, you did it right. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing, it was pretty seamless. But like that experience itself, there's a lot of resistance
Yeah.
across the board.
Animosity.
People will push that off, in a sense too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really, it's interesting to hear.
Not to
So
see the conversation, but does it, how your essences the same from about everybody, or are they?
so that's the interesting thing, because in working with the coach who distinguishes it, I mean, really, um, there you're getting that coach's sort of perspective of life on it, right? So
Okay.
no, it's always been a little bit different, but yeah, of course there are similarities within it as well.
Okay.
Um, so I want to come back to, because we're kind of getting into like the coaching program itself, but like what actually made you sign up for the program? Like what was sort of that point where you're like, okay, this is something I want to commit to?
So, initially there's the worry about the money and all that. But when my wife saw how I felt about the way I was, and she was completely supportive of it, that was a big push, because I was worried about, like, money's a big thing a lot of times in relationships. And when she's like, this sounds like it might be good for you, you should, approach it, or, continue with it maybe, or go with it. And so that helped a lot. But I just needed a change. I needed to see life in a different perspective. And, and I gained that perspective. Like, it's amazing. Like, I know I talked to you, I don't know how many, 8-10 times. And I always had the answer, but you had to kind of help me work through it, which was, it was pretty cool. Like, I always found an answer, and it wasn't in me the whole time, but just having that you asked the right questions, to kind of make me think about it was pretty neat. And so, so back to why I decided to do it. I just need a change in my life. I totally went off there, but
No, you're good. Just give me 1 second. I gotta
Yeah.
just step out for a second here.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you needed a change. What were you hoping to get out of the program? What
I
was
wanted to
like?
be able to be comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, is about it. And I think we did that and more. I think I'm in a good place in my life. So
Yeah, and one of the key words that sort of sticks with me from the beginning was acceptance. Like you were talking about, like, hey, acceptance. Me being me into the world. Like that was sort of one of the things that was a focus for you.
right. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't actually need that from everybody. Like I thought I did. And so
Mm. Yeah. Well, and that's interesting, right? Because then, like, what do you think the acceptance was in the end of it all?
just me trying to impress everybody, I guess. Trying to be liked by everybody.
Right, but like if you and however this it gets answered is totally cool. But like even just that point that you just made, you're like, okay, so I came in wanting to sort of cultivate this acceptance, like being accepted by others, and it sounds like you're at a place now where like that's not as important. Like you've almost like there's a different way of coming around that now, or a different way that you're sort of seeing yourself.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how to explain it, I guess. If I just kind of come to the point where if someone doesn't like me, it doesn't really bother me anymore. And I don't know why that finally happened. It just kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to be a little more assertive in life. And, it's just, I ask for what I want from people I'm interacting with, stuff like that. I'm not worried about hurting people's feelings. I don't want to do their work anymore, or chase them off for future projects. It's just, I'm not really sure how to say, why it changed, or it just gradually kind of did. And it's still kind of, I mean, there's still a little bit of the acceptance thing there, but I'm working through it and caring less and less about, being accepted by
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to me in that is like it feels like it's more choice. Like you get to
Right.
sort of
It
decide.
definitely is. It's not a, you can change it. You can change how you view things and how you feel about stuff. It's a matter of just working at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the experience, were there any moments of like struggle, frustration, like that type of thing that came up for you?
Like you mean like during the calls or all in general?
Yeah, either or.
I just remember during the calls, like just beating around the same subject over and over and over, and just not seeing what I wanted to see, or hearing what I wanted to hear, I guess. And there's just, I mean, that was frustrating, but there always came that moment of clarity, of what I was trying to achieve from our call that day. But
Mm-hmm.
there's always that frustration in getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it frustrated you or not. If it did, you hit it well, but
No. I mean, I think that's the part of the journey as getting to be coach is like, um, you never know what's going to be created. Where we start, might not necessarily be where we
Oh
end, and
yeah,
that,
I think several times that happened.
yeah.
So,
Well, and I there was kind of what you were speaking to as well. It was like I remember on like maybe it was our second or third call where you were like almost like, oh my god, like what is happening here, like where are we going in this conversation, like that type of thing.
yeah,
And what was really cool to see was like, well, you learned the coaching process, like you learned how a coaching conversation would go, but like what was really present for me in that was like the flow that you were in from like week 2 to week 14, like it just became this natural process in a way.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And I'm trying to think of frustrating. Maybe some of my practices might have been frustrating in the fact that might make myself do it for one thing and then not want to do it. In the back of my mind, not wanting to do it, but knowing it was best if I did it, type of thing. I don't know if that would be
Yeah.
frustrating. It was just, it created anxiety, which I use that word a lot. There's some anxiety in it, but it always worked out and everything was.
Well, and the practices are largely like a push into the unknown,
You get out of
right?
your
Like
comfort zone.
yeah, totally.
Big
And I
time.
mean, that requires a lot of courage, right? To
Right.
continuously say yes to like, I'm
Yeah.
going to step into this. I'm going to take on this thing. That is not like, I think that's sort of one of the beautiful things of coaching is like, there is that natural push,
Right.
and it's created in partnership together, and that's one of the things that, we spoke about was like, hey, if you're not ready for this, or like you feel like this is too much to take on, like say so.
I don't remember if I
And
said no to anything ever, did I?
no, I don't think so.
I know there was some there was some I never did complete, but
Hmm.
there's one or two, but I don't think I ever said. I guess that was my way of saying no then, but for the most part, I did. I think I followed through.
Well, and the one thing that I've noticed too with practices that's really interesting is like this is a um, a tendency, and not like speaking to you, but what I've seen like overall with clients is like a lot of clients they'll sort of agree to the practice, but they don't really want to do it. And that in itself is such a breakthrough to like stay in the conversation and be like, hey, I actually don't want to do this thing. Like, coach, thank you for the suggestion, but like, I'm not interested in that. Like, to me, that's a great place to get to as nice guys and human beings in general, where like you're standing for yourself in that.
Yeah, no, I remember the one practice I did not complete. I To this day I still just can't make myself go through with it, and I don't. It probably never will. I don't know if you remember
Well,
what it was, or if
you
I
know,
could bring it up. I guess, but is it?
up to you. I mean, it is
No,
public.
so I was trying to integrate with a guy at work, basically, and I
Mm-hmm.
cannot. I just don't have it in me. I want to, but I can't take that role and bring him under my wing, and it's just I don't know why I can't do it. We just don't mesh, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
I still can't to this day. I can't do it. I won't do it. I guess is more of anything. But
Yeah, and so I mean, really, that might even be a place to look at, like, are you complete with that? Are you truly like, is there
that's
still a part
that's
of
a
you
good
that's
question.
like holding on to it in a way?
Well, apparently that's the only thing I remember not ever completing. So there is something
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So
totally.
I'm
Well,
not
and
taking that practice right now, though. No, I'm just
fair
kidding.
enough, fair enough. Well, and I mean that maybe that's just it, right? Is like, you know, making that decision. Like, hey, are you going to do this thing, or are you actually going to call it completion and just move past it?
Yeah, so I'm undecided yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
Got it, man. Um, so what were some of the things that you walked away? We talked about like the acceptance piece, but like
yeah.
any other areas of life where you walked out of the program and you're like, oh yeah, like this changed for me.
So like some of some like the breathing practices and like learning to calm myself before yelling at my kids, that kind of stuff. Um, like my business practices, like that was my big thing right at the beginning. Is like I'm starting this business trying to please everybody, and now I've decided if people really want to push me on something I don't want to do, I just bid higher, and if they don't take it, they don't take it. If they take it, I get paid well to do it at least.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually just recently, well, about a year ago, a company called me, a local company that gets grants for houses around here who have lead-based paint in their homes.
Mm.
I got certification about a year and a half ago for lead remediation, and I forgot they even ever called me. Well, I start getting calls from all these people with lead-based paint on their windows, and so I don't really like doing windows, but I also realized I was working on them before by myself, and so that's kind of different now. And so I bid a bunch of stuff up and just bid it high. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, so I have my back. And if I do, I've got help now. And I think that's one of the bigger things. I didn't have help when I worked on the windows before.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think has been the benefit of that? Like just you stepping into like that leadership in a sense.
No, the stress level of running a business is significantly less when you aren't worried about pleasing everybody. You're just doing what makes you happy, and then it makes your job more enjoyable. But I will speak to also like asking for help. I don't know if we ever went over it in our practices, but I just, as a nice guy, I didn't like ask for help. I like trying to figure things out myself. I mean, I've got all different ways of doing awkward stuff, but I get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
But having a second hand is incredible. And then let's see, last week I brought some guys from work on to help build a fence. We set the posts, framed it up. I went to work for a couple of days. I come back and they had the whole thing done. It was incredible. It was incredible. Awesome. And I just want to make sure I'm paying them well enough to make sure they know I appreciate it. But yeah, it's just like that. I don't know. It's a huge weight off my shoulders trying to do everything myself.
Mm-hmm. So and I imagine that it's very aligned with that sort of life balance that you were creating, which I would say that was also a place that was really impressive to see. Was like we spoke to the vision of like that life balance, and then like by the next week you had already put some stuff in place. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I don't work weekends still. I haven't worked a weekend since we talked about it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and the kids are in school. I'll work the extra day, but if during the summer I try taking that third day off every week just to be with them. And during the school year I'll work every day because they're not home. But yeah,
got it. So we'll start to sort of wind down here, but so now the place that I am, like kind of what I was speaking to in the beginning, is like, what have you noticed like coming out of the coaching program? Like being that it's been a few months, like what kind of sticks with you in the day-to-day, or like what really just that, like what sort of stayed with you from the coaching program into like your day-to-day life?
I would like several of the practices, just asking for what I want, not accepting jobs I don't want, stopping. Like I remember I can't remember how the practice was exactly, but like with my kids, I'd pick about every fight I could with them, and I've kind of learned to take a breath and let them work through things, and then jump in. And I'm a calmer person, I think, even just by giving, like, I'm not sure how to say this, but some of the practices were like the breathing practices and thinking before I speak and stuff like that, especially with my wife. That was hard. And I still stick my foot in my mouth once in a while, but for the most part, I've been a lot better about not arguing about every stupid thing that, that's there. So I mean, all around it's helpful. If anybody's on the fence about it, they just go for it. That's not going to do it,
Yeah. And it's cool. Like what I hear is like, there's calm, there's like spaciousness, and there's like, again, like it feels like more and more like one of your superpowers is this sort of like being in the flow of life. It's really present.
It creates a flow. It creates the flow you want, and then you just go with it.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so and what would you say to like somebody who is like potentially interested in the program? Like
I said, if if anybody's on the fence about it, just Andrew's awesome, and you'll enjoy yourself. I can't remember one call where I came off being upset or pissed off. I think I felt elated about every time we came off a call. So
Yeah.
it's worth it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other, last things that you'd want to share, or just like, yeah, anything kind of coming to you?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it all. I think
Cool.
maybe they got
Um,
questions. They can message me on Messenger or whatever. If
yeah.
anything
Yeah,
we
sounds
missed, I'm
good.
I'm not quite the talker that some people are, but anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, if they have questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
I'm glad to answer them.
Yeah, that sounds good. And yeah, the last place I'd love to acknowledge you. It's been a while since I've got to do this
All
for
right.
you. And I think it's cool because it's so natural. This is a part of acknowledgement that I love is like, um, just again, like we haven't been in conversation, like we've been in conversation over WhatsApp a little bit over the last couple
Yeah.
months, but like the acknowledgement is so present to like who you are and like who you're being in the world. I really do want to acknowledge you just for like the both the consistency and like the commitment that you bring. That was one thing that was always present in the experience was like you were always a yes. And not like a yes of like I have to, but like
No.
it was a willingness to like I want to create the life that I want and I'm going to forge ahead in that creation. It was always present and it was so fun to be with because we really got to go wherever we wanted to go in those conversations. I really want to acknowledge you for the father that you are, the man that you are, like the energy of the masculine that you bring to the world. I was always present to just like your generosity, your care for others, your care for your boys, for your wife, and like I was always just impressed by your love that you just bring to all of them. Like it's really inspirational, and I think that like many people could really benefit from having that same energy that you bring. And yeah, I'll come back to that flow piece. I really want to acknowledge you for the flow, the flexibility, but also the vision that you have for life. Like that was something that was so cool to be with was like oftentimes you'd be like, okay, like, hey, I want to bring more work life balance into life. And me and like a lot of people in the world will like that'll take time, like that'll be like a process of that creation, which nothing wrong with that. But I was always so impressed by like you had the vision and you would just go after it. And I think that like that's such a admirable like powerful quality to have. So great work, man. It
Thank
was
you.
it was
Thank
an
you, Andrew.
awesome experience with you.
I agree. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So somebody said in the comments, he said, "Dang, I missed it. Is this still live?" So we are still live. We're going to be wrapping up here though, but the video is available. So feel free to just rewind it and start it from the beginning. But Jesse, thanks so much for being willing to do this,
Yeah,
and yeah, really just appreciate your
not
time.
a problem. I appreciate your help. So
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully, you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you soon.